Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Devico Breakfast Bar. Here we speak with different people involved in the business landscape, share their expertise, delve into the latest tech trends, and explore the ins and outs of IT outsourcing. I'm Oleg Sadikov, and today I'm excited to have Erik Björkman from Stella Sleep. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the new episodes. Hi, Erik. Thanks for joining me today. Could you please start by telling us a bit about yourself and your professional background?
Sure. Hi, Oleg, and hi, everyone. It's great to be on this call. So I am from Sweden. I'm a Swedish guy. I have lived 5 years in Ukraine, though, in my life. I have basically worked at three companies. First, I worked 5 years with a broadcasting company called Viasat. And they had some television stations, nothing in Ukraine, but we launched something called Viasat, which is also a satellite TV platform that someone might have used. I did 5 years with that company. Then I did 10 years with Oriflame, which I'm sure everyone listening in here know what it is. And I was running sales and marketing in Ukraine, Kazakhstan, Russia, and then in Ukraine again. And then I was heading the operations in Belarus, which is still quite a big business. I'm sure that many of the listeners of this podcast think it's a bit odd. But, this is before the war. It was different times. I thought, to be honest, that other part of the world outside Ukraine would become more peaceful. But now we know differently. This is life. I've started Stella 4 years ago, came back to Sweden. Stella is an app company. We do apps for the meditation and sleep content. We are very active in producing this content. And we also have a lot of interactive features in our app that we will talk a bit later.
Thank you. Yeah, Oriflame and then apps development. Pretty
different
experience.
Sure.
Yeah. What sparked your interest in utilizing AI technology to address challenges faced by parents, particularly in promoting better sleep and fostering stronger connection with their children?
Sure. So our product is audio only based. So for us, it's interesting to work with generative AI in a sense that in our world, you can create a lot of bedtime stories, like I'm sure many have tried on ChatGPT already. But we've integrated it very nicely in our app. We just hooked up with OpenAI's own API, which is not complicated to integrate, but makes it looks very nice. Well, it looks like a ChatGPT prompt inside our app. But the point is that the parents can only make bedtime stories with it, and they can also read this to the children, which usually is important to create these strong bonds and also, by the way, to develop the vocabulary of these children. Then they can also record these stories. So a father or a mother who makes the stories can then record it with their own voice and store it in the app. That way it becomes available for generations, and hopefully you can build a stronger bond not only with your kids, but with your grandkids, for example. Looking forward, we believe that synthesizing voice is the most relevant part for us. It's not that great developed yet, even though it's been 30 years now of development of this functionality. It still does not sound great when you put on a sample voice on text. Text to speech is still not there. We follow a lot of companies. I think there's a company in Ukraine actually called Respeecher, which is the most interesting one. There are many, many Americans ones. Apple has its own personalized voice, which is kind of more like a tool for if you have some handicap, like you're losing your voice. They might develop there, but they have not yet. And I think Respeecher is the closest solution I've seen so far. And I've evaluated maybe 30 or 40 platforms in the world. So that's where we go. And I know synthesizing voice, to be concrete, but it means that the parent is then recording the sleep stories. You got that voice sample there. You can use that voice sample to push a button. The voice is synthesized by our server, and then it's possible for that person to apply that new voice on any of our sleep stories, of which we have more than 130 or something.
Sounds impressive. Can you share any specific challenges you encountered while implementing AI algorithms with Stella and how you overcame them?
Working with OpenAI's API, it was very non-difficult. It took maybe 2-3 months to develop a normal recorder that we have, a simple feature, whereas it took 3 weeks to integrate OpenAI's API, and it works very, very well. And then, 5 hours maximum added to localize this, because we have this in both English and Swedish, for example, because there were some hiccups there. But it's very simple. It's very interesting. We've not developed this on our own. It's really just finding a good use case of this technology, implementing it quite well in the app, like few others have. I don't know why. And it's a great complement to our product, and it increases the value specifically during the trial. So in the app world and subscription apps that we run, is so important with this first, in our case, 7 days or 14 days of trial. This user must get hooked during that time. And we can see that many of them are using this funny and simple functionality, creating a bedtime story, but it makes more than converting to paying users. And that's kind of the business sense, to be honest.
Okay. What do you see as the most exciting potential applications of AI technology in the realm of industry you operate, and what opportunities and challenges do you envision for the future?
Did you ask about concrete examples?
The most exciting potential applications in your
I mean,
particular industry from perspective of AI?
for me, it is definitely development of synthesizing voice, and I can go a bit more detailed if we have time.
We have.
Respeecher is a very good company. They're working with Disney in the US. They are the ones behind Darth Vader's voice, because the actor there is, I'm not sure he's dead or very old, Floyd Patterson or something. And they, in the new movies in Star Wars, they have synthesized that voice. And also, I believe Luke Skywalker also sounds young, although he's very old now, Mark Hamill. Those guys, they work kind of manually on B2B basis. They develop, for example, Darth Vader voice takes like 2 weeks to develop. You take voice samples of this actor that are old. They're synthesizing it, they train the machine, they have to manually adjust the errors there to make it sound good. And then after 2 weeks or 1 week, and then $10,000 or something, they have that voice and you can use it. But that's obviously not applicable in a consumer world. So they have another kind of a marketplace where they say like this: okay, you have a good audio file recorded one time. I have the professional voiceover, so it's already annotated the sound. It sounds perfect. It goes up and down, breaks and everything. It's absolutely possible to replace that voice with another voice. And then it could be, for example, say that I recorded with a man, you can apply a female voice. And it follows these breaks, these pauses or yawning very well. But you can only choose between 30 of pre-trained voices in their model. So I want, of course, 1 million people to be able to do this. And eventually it will be possible. All text-to-speech solutions are, of course, getting better. You can go online and resemble AI, it's a player in this field. You can record in like 10 minutes your own voice, and then that voice can be applied on any text, but it still will not sound well. You can choose, for example, that this voice should sound sweet, like a kid, excited or calm, but it still doesn't sound well, just like 20 years ago. So I think that space is the most interesting for us, and that's where we try to look at new solutions. And I just believe in these Ukrainian guys, Respeecher, I love them.
Yeah, amazing. Proud for them that they're from Ukraine, actually. I'm glad to hear that. Beyond your professional endeavors, what are some potential interests or hobbies that you find fulfilling?
Good question. I have 2 kids, so that takes some time. One of the kids, she's in the scout, and a scout is like this, Girl Scouts. I think you call it pionieri during Soviet times, but it's very nice little young activity. They're outdoor a lot. They learn to make fire and row a boat and things like this. I do that with her once a week. And then I do play some golf. In Sweden, golf is a common sport. It's not like it is in Eastern Europe, where it's like a sport for very rich people or something. This is a simple sport in Sweden where hundreds of thousands of people play the sport, just like it's very soft exercise. And then I work extra. I would say that takes a lot of my time. So I work with an American university, and it's like a paid hobby, I like to describe it.
In Stanford University, right?
Yeah, so it's in Stanford University, and I can go on forever about that, but let's hear your questions.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about how do you balance the demands of being a CEO and a founder with the role of a course facilitator at Stanford University Graduate School of Business, and do these roles inform each other in any way?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's never easy to juggle this, but as many people of this call are running or founding companies, you never have enough money, so you have to do something else very often. So this is my extra job that pays well, and I do it in the evenings because the Americans in California, they often do that stuff in the mornings with the students, so I can work in the evenings. I think it's a fantastic activity. I worked as a course facilitator. It means that you're helping out Stanford professors with leading courses. In my case, they're called strategic leadership. It's like marketing, I would say, and critical analytical thinking, which is a very fundamental way. How do we look at truth? How are we biased when we look at something? How do we logically build a solid argument for the sake of a strategy that will work in the marketplace or will not work? And how do you critically separate data from truth and false? How do you do good tests, like good A/B tests? Because it's not a given that you do them right and learn about sample sizes and sample selections and stuff. I think it's fantastic if you can combine some academic hobby with an everyday job. Because even if in the startup world you're very iterative, you're trying new things all the time, anyhow, and it's very innovative, it's still a job and a lot of manual stuff and a lot of simple stuff you have to do as well. Whereas the academic world, it's a bit theoretical because they talk a lot about kind of optimal scenarios. I cannot do 10% of everything I learned there of how a great company should be run, but it is interesting to talk with other students. In my case, these students are my age, like 40. And they are very skilled. They're doing different things. They can work at Google or Microsoft or Adobe, or they can work in a gas company in Nigeria. They can work at wargaming on Cyprus. All kinds of stuff, really. So they have different perspectives. And this brings you a good break from your everyday startup work. And I really recommend that because you can use your brain a bit more and get into different industries or different academic theoretical frameworks, and it can challenge your mind. When it comes to my business, it has helped me to do better A/B tests, like I talked about, because as an app, you do a lot of A/B tests with the onboarding, with the paywall, with the pricing in different countries, etc., etc. So I think it's fantastic. Try it if you can.
Sounds great. So in the morning, you're a father. In the afternoon, in the daytime, you're a CEO. And in the evening, you're a course facilitator.
True.
Nice combination. In your opinion, what role does mentorship play in fostering professional growth and development? And have you had any mentors who significantly influenced your journey? Probably except the professor from the course.
Well, they're not always that great. So I would say like this, that I think it's very important with mentors. I don't know exactly who listened to this, but if you are between 20 and 30 years old, I think it's really important. Especially if you're dug down in a startup, you're spending all the time on that, you get very little other input or reflection. To get someone who's usually older with more life experience that can give you a lot of perspective of what you think and what you're doing and what you think is right is invaluable. We talk a lot about advisory board, usually to younger companies. That's kind of the same. They don't have to be called mentors, but they are people with more life experience, more perspectives, and they give you input. And I think most of us, if we look back 5 years in our own life, we might think that we were an idiot back then, or we did something that we would never do again. And this is what mentors help us to avoid going forward. So I think it's really good. I think it's good. The mentor can be the same age too. It could be a coach that helps you think a lot. A good coach is not trying to tell you anything, because usually that coach has not achieved very much success perhaps in business, but they can help you think about yourself, reflect on your thoughts, and help you come to a new conclusion yourself. Then it's a great coach. I had a coach in Ukraine, by the way, very good at Green Light Consulting. She was not in Kiev, I think, but I don't remember. She was like 25. She has not done any business, but she was very good in asking me a lot of good questions, and that helped me a lot. Otherwise, one of my biggest investors right now is an angel investor, a Swedish guy. He has done two things that I think are very interesting. One, he has really stuck to what he loves his whole life. He's 43 now. I can go into some examples. Like he would make his own wine in the attic without his parents knowing. It requires a lot of equipment to do this when we were younger than 18. So we did that, and then he continued into becoming a sommelier, and then did a business education. And then took 1 year in France in wine and trade spirits and an MBA. And he worked at restaurants. Then he worked at Systembolaget, which is kind of the Swedish monopoly in selling alcohol, because we have a monopoly just like Soviet times. And then he joined the company. And I would say he disrupted the wine industry, like very mature, old type of industry. But he started selling it with celebrities, like local Swedish celebrities in this case, like Swedish rappers or Swedish people heroes and on TV. So he made him very wealthy. And it's very inspiring with people who stick to what they love and to disrupt their industry one way or the other. I think that's the big takeaways there from that mentorship. he gives a lot of advice. Like people are usually very snobbish in their industries. They look for that, and if you can break it and introduce a much more commercial sense. So that's what he did.
Great. Are there any professionals or leaders in your network who inspire you in your professional journey, except the one we discussed?
I have another guy, he's running a company that is a supplier to me right now. They work with helping paid users share their content that is behind a paywall to other friends. So the friends do not hit a paywall, but they can enjoy the content. For example, in my case, my paying users can share a bedtime story, and the recipient, my paid user, the friend, he doesn't have to download the app or he doesn't have to register emails, anything. He can just enjoy this product, the bedtime story, in his web browser in the phone right away. So he does that and many other things. But I think why he inspires me, he's an extremely structured person. Even if you're running a crazy startup where you have to iterate 55,000 times and change track, change developers, he's anyhow been very structured about what he's doing and what they're supposed to offer and how they're supposed to operate their company. Like I feel often I'm much more lax and he's like super organized. He has a to-do list in Excel every day to get a feeling of how disciplined he is. So yeah.
Amazing.
You never heard of the guy? He's Swedish, he lives in London, but...
Okay, yeah, I think I was always surprising with the guys who are so well structured and have especially to-do list for everyday activities. That's weird to me, but for someone it works. With your experience leading teams across various industries, how do you foster culture of innovation within Stella's development and marketing teams?
Yeah, very good question. I would say that there are two polars here. Like one, you're running a big company with lots of people and there's a lot of interaction and you have to build culture one way. Stella, my company, is a very small company, 5 people. There's not so much kind of barriers to innovation in such a place. But I think it's very important to allow for a lot of crazy ideas to be discussed. For example, I love the Stanford, they call it non-consensus ideas, meaning ideas that very few people agree with. Like you have, for example, in my case, 5 people, and you have an idea from one person, and 4 people think it's an idiot idea, but he loves it or she loves it. You should not kill that idea right away. You should let it be there. And to be honest, you should try to bring in other opinions. Maybe it's advisory board or users, customers, their opinions. I mean, on new ideas, not to test an existing feature. And then you see, with these different perspectives and different viewpoints, if you can come up with maybe a refinement of that idea. And I think that's extremely important for having a good innovation, to allowing for that. So I think it's also very important not to punish idiot ideas too fast. I should not say as a CEO, like that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. I should never do it. And if I feel like I want to, or if anyone feels like saying that, they should have a warning bell ringing in their head, telling them, wait up a little bit, let this idea be there for some time, and we'll see. And if it doesn't work out, we can have a thorough discussion. And if that person cannot provide a logical argument why that idea could make sense, then we will scrap it. But it's very important to have a very big variance of ideas, like many different ideas. And then, you should work with retention of those ideas. The best ideas, you should make sure they don't slip away in some tech sprint somewhere. We didn't have time with that, let's skip it. No, it's very important to keep that idea and think about what is working in your company and keep that going. Yeah. So I think that's my few cents on innovation and culture.
Okay, thank you. As AI continues to evolve, how do you envision Stella adapting its talent acquisition and development of strategies to keep pace with emerging technologies and industry trends?
So, I mean, we're a very small company. It's not like we need to hire a lot of people, everything. But to keep track of what's happening, I stay in touch with some of the companies like Respeecher, but also other ones in that space. And that is the closest I would be to try to follow them and see what's happening. And if I can raise more money, or if my business start to take off, which would be great, then I can afford to hire them. And in my case, it's very clear. I'm very focused on synthesizing voices. And there are a couple of people in the world who seem more or less better on this. And I try to keep tab on them on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and see what they're writing, what they're thinking, their recent, they do some kind of reports, or they add some new features to whatever software they might have. And that's how I stay in touch. Because I also get a lot of inbound, if you continue a little bit more, inbound outsourcing for companies who want to maybe provide this to me. They pitch me and they say, we are great in developing mental health space, without being more specific than that. But when those pitches are more concrete, it gets more possible to see that, okay, maybe this firm or that guy or that girl, they could be interesting for me to continue with. But I have to balance that with like hundreds of outsourcing companies contacting me all the time. Maybe they have a great AI idea, but I need more information and I don't have time to spend with two people every day asking more questions about this. So I would need, ideally, in your business, I would need, maybe it's not a marketplace, but it's a platform where all of the companies like yours are reviewed. There are previous clients, quick comments, ratings with stars. They have to try to not be manipulated by you because you're probably professionals in this. And I want to be able to speak with someone else who used the services of that outsourcing company. Now I can't. I don't have a great network in Ukraine. It's not like I have friends who used every single agency there. So, your industry, I think, is just so fragmented. There's so many companies there, so many developers break out from whatever they were working. They create a new kind of collective community. Sometimes it's a company. Sometimes it's not even like a company, like an individual entrepreneur, like very small form of corporation. That's not always that a company that I can trust, because I'm a Swedish kind of LLC, a company. I cannot just work with anyone. It needs to be stability.
Yeah, definitely. Based on Sweden, do you notice any unique challenges or opportunities in the tech industry in your region compared to the other parts of the world?
Yeah, I think that one problem is the taxes are high here. It's very difficult.
Not for Sweden.
No. But it's expensive to hire people here and pay salaries here. It's almost impossible. That's the problem. Because company profit tax, it's not high, but you're not usually in profit the first year. Maybe if you're in consulting business, you could be, but not if you build a consumer goods type of company, like an app in my case. I think that it is on the plus side. It is fairly easy access to capital. Of course, it's more difficult now than 2 years ago, no doubt. But it's still, I've raised money from 24 angel investors. And if I would be in Ukraine, working there, for example, I cannot imagine that I would have been able to do it that fairly easily. Like, I'm not even used a lawyer. I have an accountant person who works 5% one evening per week maximum. And that's enough to raise that type of money, put the money in the bank and start to spend it on stupid ads on Facebook and Instagram, stuff like that. So I think let's go with Sweden. Good people talk about ecosystem. Yeah, I mean, they're good trainings for free, a lot of material for free, good, easy to get started. But that also means that there are a lot of idiots that get started who shouldn't start a company. And the filtration, I think in Ukraine, for example, or maybe Cyprus, it's harder because it's hard to get started. It's only the great people who start something. They partner up, for example, with the right IT outsourcing company, and then it becomes something big. So other thing with Sweden, I think it's a healthy place anyhow, even though Sweden is a very socialistic place in general, like I talked about high taxes. But you still have companies like Spotify or Klarna or Voice, like electronic bikes. Yeah, actually Skype was made by a Swedish guy together with an Estonian guy. So there's a lot of good stuff coming out of this tiny place, and it doesn't seem to kind of squash innovation. With a socialistic system, everyone can get a good education. It kind of helps people to get started.
Thanks for the detailed answer. Could you comment on the challenges associated with the shortage of qualified specialists in the IT sector, particularly in relation to your business?
Yeah. So yeah, that's a very good question, and it touches upon what I was talking about before. I don't think there is a big shortage. It's expensive. I mean, especially now because a lot of great people have been laid off the past 12 months, to be honest. But the difficulties is to find a good one, good developers or IT outsourcing platform. It's like a huge risk for a Swedish company to engage a Ukrainian or Kazakh or Cypriotic, whatever, outsourcing platform where you can barely meet the people there. It's usually maybe on video conference. It's difficult to assess the previous capacity. Will they do stuff on time? Do they require 10% more time than that other firm? Is their pricing fair? Is that company stable, or will it kind of cease to exist? Things like that. So I think it's for a Swedish company, sure, they will look elsewhere. They will look, for example, Romania, Ukraine for sure, Kazakhstan, maybe Serbia, maybe. That's where they have these tech hubs where try to hire people because long term it's too expensive to always have only Swedish developers.
How your development team is structured, and have you ever used IT outsourcing services?
So we have one full-time lead developer who is fairly good, fairly full stack, like he's handling both front end and back end also. But he's an iOS developer. So we have two apps in our company. The first one is programmed in Flutter. He's not so good with Flutter, and I cannot take his time to learn Flutter from the beginning, etc. So I've engaged an agency, exactly like your company. It's a small one. They call Devs X. I'm not even sure. It seems to be a company, but it's small. It's working well. So yeah, that's the setup. They work maybe 5%. If I say 100% is what they work full time, they work about 5% with different features, specific sprints. It is quite clearly assessed in time. They usually keep the word. Of course, in this world, it's very challenging because sometimes it might be difficult to predict if something will take longer time, shorter time. And the guy who orders it, me in this case, can never really know how fast should they be. Of course, a CTO who worked 20 years in the industry has another opinion, but a CEO
Yeah,
person might not know.
I totally understand you. What were the factors you decided to proceed with an IT outsourcing company?
One, we need special knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, people are good in Flutter and done a lot of other projects with Flutter before, so I know it should not take so much time for them to fix whatever I wanted. That agency had been into my industry. They had been into mental health with some other projects, and Sleep app is kind of close to mental health. So that also helped me choose them. It was not a tender. It was not like a big tender brief where they had to assess what hours it would take to do this and that. I didn't do any tests with them. I just took a chance that they would be good enough. And the first task was simple. Second task is less simple. And now we're soon going to do the third task. So I like it because with them, I can control the costs. If something takes too much time, I just kill that feature and live without having it. Whereas a full-time employee, you never know, is that person working hard or not working hard? You can never know.
Got it. What are the benefits and drawbacks of IT outsourcing as per your opinion?
So benefits, you can control costs. They usually have 10 other products, so it's good for them to have more or less sometimes if you're not so super hard with your deadlines. You can get hold of specific knowledge, very interesting. Of course, if you have a special programming language or a special industry you want to try to go into, etc., it's easy to do with an outsourcing platform that's been there for a couple of times before, has an idea of what works and what doesn't work. You can control the costs, I said that, yeah. Drawdowns is sometimes they don't have obviously any loyalty or is super interested in. Of course, they are normal relation to this company, but they will not work on a Sunday evening if you need to because the app goes down because the server has a timeout or because there's been too many requests on something or whatever. But a full-time employee would usually have much more loyalty and help out with that. So yeah, that's a drawdown. So the thing is, it's nice to have a full-time resource in-house and then use outsource agencies on top of that.
As per your opinion, how do you measure the success of your collaboration with your existing IT outsourcing vendor or in general?
Yeah, I mean, I would say if they deliver reasonably within time that they have assessed, because they assess every sprint very well, they do that within that time frame or reasonably, 10% more, 10% less hours. That's a determination of success for me. When it comes to the quality, it's kind of black and white. Either that feature is done or is not done. And it's not like I put a certain value on that it was nicely done than the other ones, etc. Of course, if that agency wants to have a lot of opinions also, like not just program whatever I want or whatever drawn in Figma, but if they come with very good business advices or opinions, that maybe will not put a number on it, but I would like it and I know that means more for me. And that's probably how I would think they're more successful if they were proactive with business advice to me.
And my last question, what advice would you give to other companies considering IT outsourcing?
Yeah, well, I think you should try it. I just think we need to find better, Trustpilot is not enough to assess if an agency is good or bad, especially like in my case, Nordic European companies, finding an outsourcing platform in Ukraine, high risk, very few people who want to try it. Some, of course, do it, but far from all. And we need some kind of overview of all those agencies in Ukraine. So I understand, I can see customer reviews from them, from their customers and grades so I can assess it. I think that's my final advice. Can please someone make a site like that for Ukraine? I will be happy to engage to the website.
Thank you, Eric. Thanks everyone for listening. If you enjoy our discussion and want to stay updated on future episodes, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. That way you will not miss out on the latest insights and conversations from the Devico Breakfast Bar. See you next week. And Eric, thanks again for your time. I'm sure that was very useful.
Great, Oleg. Thank you very much. I can say